guys, little Miko here. Well, Miko, little Miko, whatever you want to call me, it works. I did a video a couple of days ago, I think 2 days ago, maybe a day ago, I don't know. Anyways, of doing how to draw hair, my style. I'm not gonna say it's exactly how to draw hair, it's how I draw hair. And I realized after the comment from my mother and a couple of other people that I did it in a way that is very harsh to beginners. So I thought I would go through again and do one that is more basic and more easy for beginners to understand. And this one will actually include things like what brushes to use and like what these different brushes do and what size your canvas should be. And I mentioned in the last video, and actually I think if you want to, you should look at that one after you look at this one, that I changed the size of the canvas so that you couldn't see the details up close of what I did, because up close it looks terrible. So today we're going to start with the canvas size. I usually do around a little under 2,000 for my height and my width. Depending on which one's longer or taller, I want to have it under 2,000 pixels, just because I feel like it's a little too big if it gets above 2,000, though the resolution is still very nice. The resolution is still 600. I usually start with like a purple background paper color. You can do no paper color, you can do any kind of paper color you want. I do purple just because I really like purple, obviously, so that's just a personal preference there. And Clip Studio, I'm going to explain a little bit about it here. I don't actually know that much. What I do know is from like playing around. So Clip Studio basically has like a bunch of different features. I usually use the illustration feature, but there's also the comic feature, the printing of the fanzine, I don't even know what that is, and the show all comic settings, and the animation thing. So like basically these are like very different settings. If you use the illustration, it gives you more brighter colors and like things, and like there's just different settings depending on which one you're doing. You can animate things, which is really fun, and I've played around a little bit with that, but I'm not very versatile with it. As you can see, as I pull this up, like you can see my timetables and stuff here that I have, but I don't really need them up, so I'm just gonna close them down. But like this is where I would be playing with my animations. So anyways, so let's start with the basics beyond the initial thingamajigger. I can sew word. The initial canvas size. So I talked last time about doing a sketch about like what I wanted to do with the hair. Like I needed to sketch a face first. To do the sketch, I use this tool over here called the pencil. And my pencil tool, I always have it on the lighter pencil setting, and it has a very good, like, it has very natural pencil lines. I guess, like, having it in blue on purple does not really look good, but, like, hold on. Like, it has very natural, like, pencil strokes. The harder you press, the darker the stroke, or the lighter you press, the lighter the stroke, and, like, the smaller, like, just basically like a typical pencil. I really like it. You've also got the darker pencil, which is, like, a lot harder lines. So if you want, like, darker, more solid lines, you'd use the harder pencil. And then, like, mechanical lines are very, like, you can't get any bigger. This is, like, a set. No matter how much pressure I add here, it's kind of set at that size. So it's about personal preference. I really like the light pencil. That's just my thing. Also, I talked about using the mapping pen versus the G pen. I have my mapping pen, which is a very, like, the harder I press, it has a very more finite control with how much pressure you add, and, like, how little pressure you add changes the, size of the pen. Like, it has very fine control. I really appreciate that, but I also don't want it to go too fast, so I have it stabilized at 100%. Now, if you look at other things like the G pen, my stability on my G pen is, like, 4, which means if I move my hand really fast, it won't follow it completely exactly, but it'll follow it enough. The mapping pen, if you go really slowly, you can create some really beautiful straight lines or curved lines, and like you can just make them very more fluid. And a lot of like artists use this as a way of, when you stabilize things, it creates a more solid line. Like if I were to, let's say I'm working on the second layer, like I've done the sketch, whatever, and I'm trying to outline now. If I use the G pen, it kind of like, you can kind of, if I zoom in here, see how blurry that line is. Now, that's without stabilization, because the computer's trying to keep up, but it's not keeping up completely. If I use the mapping pen to do that exact same line, and I do it the exact same way, it comes out a lot smoother. So you can actually really tell the difference just by looking at those two lines. The line with the mapping pen, the bottom one, is a lot smoother than the line with the G pen. And that's because the computer takes a lot more time to like follow your exact precise movement, and your hands are a lot steadier than the computer gives you credit for. And so you have to actually move a lot slower with the G pen, or not the G pen, the mapping pen, but it's actually a lot more beneficial for if you're trying to do line art. So anyways, we're going to go back to the pencil for a bit, because we're going to do the basic outline again of the face. And I don't know if you noticed in the last video, if you watched the last video, I started with a circle. Because even though my proportions are terrible on most things, faces always heads kind of start with a circle. The top of your skull is round. You start with a circle. And then I just kind of, depending on how I want to do it, last time I already did the cheekbone first and then I did the face through it. This time I kind of did the line to kind of show where the center of my face would be before I did the cheekbone. It really just depends on how you want to do it. And honestly, I think there's no right or wrong. You should start with your skull first, though, because, you know, eyes are great and all, but it's easier to proportion things if you start with the skull, to be honest. My middle school art teacher taught me that. After many years of arguing with me, he taught me that. Because he argued with me quite a bit. Because I didn't like to listen. I was not a good student. So, maybe that's why I'm doing this on YouTube. I don't want my students to argue with me. Just do what I say. No, just kidding. Just listen. You can do it however you want, but, like, let me tell you how I do it first, and then you can decide how you want to do it after that. So anyways, yeah, I just do this basic outline. I dink around. The face is supposed to be 5 eyes length. I don't really care. Whatever. I'm just kind of dinking right now. There's a mouth. I don't really know what it's doing, but there's a mouth. So anyways, we're going to go sketch out some hair here. Maybe we'll make it a boy. I don't know. My boy hair is kind of terrible. We'll just kind of play. I don't know how I really want this yet. I think I'm going to do it off to this side this time. So we're just going to kind of play with the hair a little bit. Last time I made it longer. This time I think I'll make it shorter, because honestly it's just a quick intro on how to do hair. It's nothing too highly specific. And actually we're going to do this anime style, or cartoony style, just to give you an idea of like how I do it cartoony style. So that'll be a thing. I'm going to add eyebrows because it just looks creepy right now. Okay, that did not help. I tried. I failed. Okay, I don't know why I always draw elf ears on these things. I'm just like, hey, look, it's an elf. Why isn't it an elf? Because Miko said so. We're not going to make it an elf. This time the ears are going to be hidden. We're going to do it that way. But basically when you draw hair, you want like the lines to be very fluid and motiony. Like as you can see, there's no real like straight lines when I do this. I just kind of curve my pencil. You can't really see me flicking my wrist in real life, but like I'm just kind of working with my hand tilted on the screen and the thing kind of working in my general idea. Anyways, so yeah, this is the head that I'm going to work with. The tool I just clicked on there, hold on, I should explain that one. My scale up, scale down, my rotate. I really like this tool. It's very handy for basically anything. You just click it and it takes the current layer you're working on and it helps you scale it however you want, and then you can just press OK when you want to, you're done. Next, I'm going to go and I'm going to play with my vector layer. And vector layers, kind of like my mapping pen, it's like the stability for layers. So where your normal layer would be very kind of like blotchy and if you rotated or you used your scale up, scale down, rotate layer, or scale up, scale down, rotate thing, it kind of blurs the edges. If you use your vector layer, the lines you create stay the exact same width or whatever, the exact same pixelated look that they have this entire time. So you can rotate them, you can play with them, they look the same. They won't change. But if you do it on a normal layer, the pixelation kind of edits itself and it looks really blotchy and bad if you change something on a normal layer. So you have to go through and kind of clear it up, and like, it just basically makes it blurry, I guess. I think that's the best way to describe it. So, you know, personal preference. So I'm going to do my outline, and I'm going to do it on my vector layer, because I like my vector layer. And again, we're using the mapping pen, because I have it set to 100% stability. And again, I am just going to go through and do the basic outline first. I'm not going to go through and outline all the little tiny details I put in the hair or anything like that. I'm literally just going to do the outline. In fact, I'm going to do a very, very basic outline where I don't even go into the curves of the hair like I normally would. Okay, so we're just going to go through and do that. Like, I'm trying to do very basic here. I'm not even trying all that hard to make it. And as you can see, if I want it to look more solid, I go through and I just kind of do it a little bit at a time. Like, I don't try to make it one solid line. I do different pressures and stuff to give it kind of a more depth, basically. So that's how I do that. And you want to make sure you completely outline the hair or your image, because what I'm going to do next is I'm going to use a fill tool. And the fill tool will go in and fill whatever is outlined. Well, depending on how you have it set, it can refer to other layers, so you can use the fill tool without editing anything and go to a different layer and basically fill in that layer based on what's around it. So that is like one of my favorite tools in this entire thing, because before this I was using a program called Paint Tool Sci, and I had to like allocate what areas I wanted highlighted, and it was a mess. To say the least, it was a mess. I hated it. Especially because you'd have to go through and edit all the things it didn't end up clicking or whatever, and I hated it. I'm so glad I have this program now. Like, my best friend uses Paint Tool Sci. Shout out to you, Brooke. I love you, and I'm glad you introduced me to Paint Tool Sci's beginner program, but like, now that I have a little bit more control over what I'm doing and understanding what I'm doing, because before I was kind of stupid, I prefer Clip Studio. It costs a little, actually I think they cost about the same. I think they're both about $50. But like, I like this one more, personally. It also has a couple of moderators or layering things in here that I also really like. Like, you can edit I guess the best way to like compare it is like a camera filter. Like, if you want to change the brightness or something, you can edit the filter of the photo, or you can edit the tone and stuff. Like, you can obviously go up into your layers and your selections and your views and your filters, and like, you can do this manually. You can go into edit, you can do transform, you can do your tonal corrections and do your tonal curve, your color balance, your level corrections, blah 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 blah. But, and I don't know if anybody knows how to do that. Like, I only know how to do that because I took a photography class. But I prefer to do it with my layering over here, because your darken, your multiply, your color burn, these things are fun to play with. And I encourage people who want to like learn how to do different coloring effects to play with them. Like, I really do. I encourage everybody to play with these things because they are really fun. And they can do some really amazing things for your art. Like, some artists use specifically, I know one artist who uses a lot of color dodge. He loves it. It's like his finishing touch on any art piece he does, and his art is fantastic. I say with a biased voice, but I really like color dodge. Paint Tool Sci does not have color dodge, for anyone wondering, but it is still a good program if you like that sort of thing. So yeah. Oh wait, no, I'm not doing that yet. So that's the basic outline, and if I close that, it closes one layer without closing the other. So you can kind of see what I did. I guess that hair's kind of androgynous. The face is kind of androgynous too, so it works for me. So yeah, that's the basic hair, and I've got a really thin line up here that I'm just gonna darken just a tad, because I don't trust really thin lines after working with Paint Tool Sci, because thin lines can get you in trouble on Paint Tool Sai. If you're not careful, they will make it so your entire thing gets, your entire canvas gets covered in the color you fill. And it's awful. Not dissing on Paint Tool Sai too much. I'm kind of dissing on it, but not really. Like, I appreciate the product. I just, like, not my choice. Anyways, so now I'm going to go about that, and I'm going to create a new vector layer. And this vector layer I'm going to call Details. And these are going to be the little tiny details that I didn't add in earlier. The reason for this is I'm separating the layers so that I can hide this with the tool that I've been hiding this purple blue layer with, which is this eyeball right here. This eyeball makes it so you can view or not view your layers. So when I go into fill later, it will make it so I can hide the layers I don't want to be referenced, so I can just fill the layer that I want referenced, which in this case is just my outline layer. So anyways, we're going to go through and we're going to edit these little tiny details a little bit. Just a little bit. I don't think I'm going to get too ham into it. So, this is a much simpler, easier way to handle your line art. Especially if you're doing like comic book stuff, this will really help even things out a little bit so that you're not having to constantly deal with drama basically and wondering like if your lines are proper or whatever, and you don't have to constantly go back through and fill things. So that's basically all this is, and I really enjoy that part of this program. And layering technique. You can do layering on just about any art program, I think. I'm pretty sure every art program has layering because online drawing without layering would be a nightmare. I think I speak for almost everybody when I say that. I don't know very many artists who don't use layering. If you don't use layering, you're freaking god tier because I don't get how you would do that. But anyways, so now I'm going to go back and I'm going under my normal layer, my vector layers here, and I'm going to create a new layer, and this layer is going to be the base tone. So I'm just going to layer, I don't usually label them, I just kind of, look at the little mini screen and hope I can figure out what it is. So that's my base tone. So today we're going to make the, let's say red. We'll make it fiery red. We'll work with red because I hate red, because red's a pain to work with. So maybe I can teach you a little something extra about why this color is such a pain, especially if you're trying to use these filters. So, there's your base tone. As you can see, it did exactly what I said it would. The second it filled in to a minute detail, almost. Look at that. See, even I screw up. I screw up a lot, but that's besides the point. Ta-da! So occasionally I do have to go through and I have to like nitpick the little tiny detail things around the edges of the hair, but that's just because I made really fine lines when I did that, so I can kind of understand why my tool was like, no, screw you. And I'll explain in just a second something else that I almost forgot. I just want to get through these because I hate these little tiny things. Okay. So, as you can see, I clicked on my fill top thing. It looks like this little bucket right here. It's great. I love my fill tool. And you can refer only to the layer you're editing. You can refer to other layers. You can close and fill, and then you can paint unfilled areas. So I really like the refer to other layers tool because in this case, like I have my vector layer and then I have this layer, and I can just refer to other layers and then just click on the inside of this and it'll fill it. And that's fantastic for me. That's why I like that tool. So that's why you now know why I use that. And I'm going to put that back. And I don't know if I fully like that, so I'm actually going to go through and edit it now that I've seen it without the this thing. So we're going to go through and do that now. And yeah, give me a second. Screw you. As you can tell, I'm not the best at like doodling these lines. In fact, I'm probably one of the worst. I hate doing hairlines when it comes to cartoony hair. I just think they are god-awful. But I try. Anyways, okay, so he looks like a chaotic mess. I think that's the best way to describe it right now. I think that's the best you're gonna get out of me for describing it. But, like, he's a mess. We're gonna go with that. He is a hot mess. Okay. Hold on. Oh, that's the other thing about vector layers. I don't know if you noticed that, but it just kind of like popped my lines a little bit. It makes it so your lines are a lot smoother and cleaner at all times. Like always, it argues with you about that. So if you don't want it to argue with you, don't use a vector layer. But I really like the vector layer because it does argue with me and makes my lines really clean. Like you can get some clean cut edges with the vector layer, which I appreciate so much. And there's a couple other things you can do with it that are very nitpicky and finicky and make drawing buildings really easy. But I hate doing backgrounds, so I'm not going to get into that because I don't really know how to do it either. So, now that I've got that in place, I'm going to go back to my base tone. I'm going to add another layer. And this layer, I'm going to do shadowing. The nice part about the hairstyle I'm doing now is it only requires 3 layers for this. Well, 5 layers if you count the details and the outline. But, which I might actually shrink my outline. I don't know. We'll see. Or maybe soften it a little bit. Or change the tone. Oh, that's the other thing. I'm going to play with my tonal correction. Oh, wait, I can't on this. Where is my... No, I just want to lock... Why are you being such a brat? God, I hate this thing sometimes. Oh, right. Vector layers like to argue. Okay, so I'm going to actually go up. And once you have your vector layer kind of where you want it, and you're not going to change the transparent pixels, which are the things that aren't colored in, then you can actually go through and, like, make it a normal layer by merging it to the layer below it. And that's what I just did, because I'm going to go through and I'm going to... Oh, and I guess I can actually merge the details now, because I'm going to go through and I'm just going to make it a lighter tone, because you can't make it a lighter tone on the vector layer without editing everything, and it's just... Ugh. Or you can, I don't know. Maybe you can. I just haven't learned how to do that yet. This is what I know how to do. That's what this video is about. What Miko knows how to do. Anyways, so here we go. Now that outline's a lighter tone, I'm going to go to my shadowing. And now, on the last video I talked about this as well, I'm going to clip to the tray, or clip to the layer below. What this does is it makes it so no matter what you do, it will not go outside the layer below. So I can do this all day and it will only stay in the hair area. I freaking love this. This is another reason why you use layering. If you keep your layers separate, like your skin tone, your clothing, and all that, all the little details, if you keep them separate and so make it so the two things that touch each other two colors that are different don't touch each other in the same layer, then you can literally do this and it makes your art so much faster and easier. And I'm just going to backspace and it deletes the entire color. So anyways, now that I've got your attention there, I'm going to sadly work with maroon, because usually I do an overlay and I can just kind of play with whatever color I want. But with red, it gets a little bit more tricky because red likes to argue. I don't like red for that reason, but it is what it is, I suppose. Actually, I really hate red. Maybe I should change the color. It's too late now. Anyways, so red's a very dark color. And so I'm just going to go through and I'm going to shade it like where some shadows would be, or where I think some shadows would be, or whatever, you know. My thing. It's my art. Who cares? It's my art. I can do what I want to and all that. So I'm just going to go through and do that. And yeah. Just some basic... This is like some really basic work. I'm not even going to upload this one to Deviant because it actually looks terrible. But like, it just gives you a general idea of what you can do with this style. It's not anything perfect or great. In fact, I actually kind of hate it. But it's workable. It's feasible, I suppose, is the good way to describe it. I'm kind of going through and I'm coloring some areas that maybe I shouldn't color. And I'm just going to go through and erase it. And the tablet I have that I work with is the Cintiq 13 HD. I really like it. It is like my favorite thing ever right now, because it is my best friend and helps me through so much pain in my art times. So yeah, and the pen is really nice and everything about it is really nice. I really like Cintiqs. It took me forever to figure out how to work it, like 3 years, but you know, 3 years of glory, and now I have it and I love it. And there's a new version out that I really want but I can't have because I have this one and it still works and it's great and I'm gonna keep it. And I don't need better and bigger and better because I've got this. even though the other one is like a computer on its own and I don't have to connect it to my computer. Anyways, there is the outline and the basic shading. I'm actually going to take this and make it darker. Edit. This is where I'll play with my tonal correction. Brightness and contrast, we're going to make it darker. So we're just going to go through and kind of darken that out a little bit. So now you can kind of see the outline is kind of coming a little bit together. If you want to add another outline and add like highlights, you can. But I hate highlighting red, so I'm not going to bother. But I just wanted to give a basic idea of how to do the basics. The very, very basics. And so the other thing I used in my other video was the brush tool. And I'm going to use that now just to kind of give you guys an idea of the brush tool. The brush tool is really handy because it's kind of like a paintbrush. It has a bunch of different, basically, things. The same things as the pencil and the everything else. Settings, I guess you could call. They call them tips, but settings. I use the transparent watercolor because it kind of like, it erases, but it also adds a little bit of paint. So you can kind of go through and like edit your shadowing doing that, and you can make it blurred. This is how I do a lot of my blurring, because when I do my hair bases, I want it a lot of blur, just so it has some foundation to kind of work off of. And when I do realistic hair, as you'll see in the next video, I remove the outline. When I do cartoony hair, the outline stays. And so if you want like a more blurred effect, you can go through and just kind of blur away. So who's gonna tell you no, because it's your hair. And that actually kind of makes it look a little bit more comic booky, and I kind of appreciate that right now, because I'm so not digging this hair. Like, I'm not gonna lie to you. I am not digging it at all. I don't like it at all. So you can go through and kind of add a little bit of shading however you want. And you can add... Oh, that's the other thing. When you have this red mark next to your layer on this thing, it means that it's attached to the layer below. Directly below. Unless that layer is also attached to the layer below, in which case it reverts to the one that's a normal layer. So if you were to put a layer that was not attached to the layer below, this layer that you want it attached to, the layer in between that is normal will cause a disconnect and will cause your shading to go away. As long as all the ones you want attached to that layer are in a row and are fine, it will show up normal. And depending on how you layer it, it will change the way things look, obviously. So play around with that, get a feel for it, figure out what you like, and do kind of, your own thing. And eventually you'll come to your own style, basically. Like, I still don't have a style. I just kind of play around and do different things all the time. I do cartoony, I do semi-realistic. I'm not going to call it even close to realistic, because it's not, ever. But, yeah, so you can just kind of do you. And however you want to do it, that's how you can do it. So that's kind of the beginner's tutorial. If you want a more detailed hair, go check out the one I do next. It is the purple. I will actually add the link to the description below. So if you like these videos, if you want to see more, if you want to see how I do eyes or anything else, again, this is just my style. It's not how anybody else specifically does it. Maybe other artists do it like I do. I did get a lot of my inspiration off of other artists on YouTube. That doesn't mean I do exactly how they do it either. I have watched a lot of tutorials, but I have never, ever, ever, ever remembered any of them. Well, except for a couple where I learned how to, do the basics. So, anyways, if you liked what I did, like, follow, subscribe. If you want to see other things that I do, if you want to see how I do noses or mouths or eyes or skin tones or whatever, feel free to send me a comment, ask me what I should do next. I don't actually normally do these tutorials, but people actually really wanted to see how I did hair, so, I did one. And then people were like, can you make it more basic? And I was like, okay, well, I guess I can make it more basic. And I had free time today, so today is the basic one. So, yeah, no. If you guys like it, follow it. If you don't like it, cool. Tell me why. Let me know what I'm doing wrong. And, yeah, that is all for today. I hope you guys had a good time. I had a good time. I actually am going to upload this on DeviantArt because, you know what? It's a tutorial, and it doesn't have to be perfect. So, we're just gonna... Oh, right. Maybe I should make a new layer so I can do this. Signature. Woohoo! So, cool. Yeah. Have a good one, guys. I'll see you next time, hopefully. Bye!